It's Sunday night. It's the red, the white, the blue football therapy session, and boy, do some of us need some therapy after this week. Who better to spend the next hour with than Charlie and Stephen, both of whom just enjoy just that whole glorifying of their Liverpool march towards the top, or maybe second place to City. But we'll leave that for now. But yeah, welcome, guys. How are you both doing? You all right?
Doing well, John.
Good.
No complaints.
Well, that's good, isn't it? That's a good start. I like that positivity, Charlie. I'll take that. Right, so thanks for watching, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Yeah, not too bad. I can't complain about this week's footy, other than the frustration of how Gerrard set Villa up, but we'll get to that later on. But yeah, not too bad.
Do you know, I'm going to start tonight with a stat, because what was quite unbelievable was the games from Friday night and Saturday, and what was it? 5 out of 6 games were settled by a penalty, and it just does not seem possible that you'd be talking about thousands to one if you'd have gone to the bookies on Friday lunchtime, put £1 on it. I'm pretty sure you'd be sat on a flight to the Bahamas at the moment to escape the winter lull of weather in the country.
Yeah.
But yeah, quite bizarre. Yeah. And then obviously today's games were completely different. So I'm going to suggest we start with a highlight of the whole weekend, which was Burnley's 0-0 draw against West Ham.
Oh yeah, what a highlight that is, John.
Yeah, just to feel we've mentioned it, so anyone who's a Burnley or a West Ham fan, yeah, you got to mention. There we go. Let's move on.
You know what, John? I was going to say there, it was that exciting. I didn't take any notes on the game for tonight's show.
Oh no, I don't even think
penalty comment there, John. 5 out of the 6. It needs to be said that all 3 of the title chasers got the 3 points from the 12-yard spot. All 3 of them got the.
And how different that could have been.
Yeah.
It's such small margins, isn't it? And I know we talk about the end of the season, the table doesn't lie, and blah blah blah. But actually, as a weekend, this has been like a pivotal one for those, certainly for the top 3. And I would also include Man United in there as well, because we'll maybe have a chat about their penalty as well. But yeah, just a really strange set of results, and once again, just coming back to something that we've kind of flagged up last season, when it appeared to be away teams used to go and win last season. Just seemed to be one of those things because there were no crowds, and yet we've now got a weekend where I think there's only Man United who've won away from home out of all the fixtures for this week. Everything else has been, obviously, Burnley's 0-0 draw, but everything else has been a home win. And it's one of them little things that you start looking at and you start thinking, that this is where you get your own crowd, you get the passion, you get that reaction. Similar. I know we finished last week's show talking about Everton and stuff like that. Monday night, the crowd actually got Everton a result against Arsenal, and the players too, because the players didn't turn up today, which is par for the course with Everton in a minute. But against Arsenal, the crowd got behind them. There was such a positivity about the way they played, and I think that's happening across the board at the moment. There's really crowds are actually swaying results and swaying what could be a dodgy week into being 3 points, and fair play to those teams at home this weekend. And for all Arsenal were criticised on Monday against Everton, they won comfortably yesterday against Southampton, and actually looked superb again. So it's strange, isn't it? Strange. So where should we start talking about? Because I'm busting to talk about some of these games this week, apart from the Everton one, obviously.
I think there's been some controversial penalties this week.
Just a bit.
Particularly to say Leicester. So let's start there.
Okay, yeah.
cracking game, 4-0 against Newcastle United. Great result for them.
Yeah.
But I'm with the Newcastle fans here. I'm a bit frustrated by how that penalty stood. You know, we've got it all right in normal time, in normal speed. You're going, yeah, it's a penalty. But when VAR go and look at it, they can see it and they can analyze it, and you can see it's a blatant dive. It is he actually jumped and dives before there's contact.
Yeah.
So now what we've got, and it brings all this grey area of, it's got to be what did he call it? A clear and obvious mistake. It's got to be a clear and obvious mistake. So we now have this blurred line now of what is a clear and obvious mistake. You know, so what is this? So for me, personally, I think this decision stands in the grey area of what's a clear and obvious, because during normal play, you get the normal speed, the referee's seeing it, yes, penalty. You go and analyse it at slow motion, which we spoke about last week as well, about VAR. They got the benefit of the slow motion, and they used the benefits in last week's discussions, if I remember rightly. And they used that. But this week they're saying, well, no, actually, it's not clear and obvious. So for me, it falls in the grey area. I'm going to put my neck on the line and say I side with the Newcastle fans and say it should have been overruled. What do you guys think?
I'm going to sit on the fence with this, because actually you're damned if you give it and you're damned if you don't give it, and it's such a difficult one. You know, Eddie Howe complained after the game that it changed the game for them, but he's forgotten the fact that it was 4-0. It was 4-0, and actually Leicester decided to turn up today, which I know I've been critical in the past few weeks, because actually they've been really quite poor. But it's again another result which puts them back into the mix for top 8. I don't know, Stephen. It's one of them, and I think unless you've possibly played at the highest level and you understand exactly what happened or what happens when somebody just sticks their leg out and you go and you do play for it, don't like it or not. I think that's exactly what it was all about. There was no, I think Lascelles was actually a little bit naive in some respects, but Maddison has got previous on this, and he does go down. He does go down easy. It's an odd one. It's an odd one, but it's strange enough, they never tend to give them to teams in the top half of the teams in the top half of the table tend to get them, and the ones in the bottom half of the table tend to get the decision against them.
We'll get to the conspiracy theories later. I love one of the top teams. Charlie, what do you think?
Well, I think with VAR, I think that they should, whenever there's a gray area, they should go on with the original call. I think part of the reasoning behind putting VAR in the system was to try to keep the game moving a little bit, not to become a forensic game. You can spend 20 minutes doing the forensics of every call if you get. We don't want it to become that. But if there's an obvious mistake in VAR where you see there's no contact made, then I think they should man up and make that, reverse the call, especially if it's obvious, saying, okay, this guy took a dive, and he should be penalized for taking a dive instead of getting away with a dive. But if it's really gray, if they can't tell, then you got to stay with the call and just keep the game moving.
Yeah. Sorry, Charlie. Yeah, and I think I said, even though I stuck my neck on the line and said I'd go with the Newcastle fans and say they should have been overruled, I did say it's grey area. So I think of what you just said there, Charlie, because it's in the grey area, it was the right decision not to overrule it.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of them hotly debated subjects.
And as for Leicester destroying them 4-0 today, of course they did, because My guy Vardy was in my fantasy team, and he's sitting on the bench again.
I see.
0 points for Vardy.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, Charlie, you're not the only one who's made mistakes in the fantasy league this week. I took Salah off being captain because I didn't fancy against that Villa. I didn't really fancy against because I've seen how Gerrard sets up. He's really got that team playing. So I thought I'm going to take it off and I give it to James, and he got a big fat 0. So, we're not the only one who's made mistakes. And to be honest with you, if I would have just kept me captain, I only got beat by John by 4 points today.
So you did. Yeah,
54-60. So
I was the killer this week, guys.
If they kept Salah captain, I'd probably beat John tonight. But that's
you probably would. You probably would.
Can
I go back to Newcastle though? Because actually,
before we go on.
Oh yeah. Hi, Stacey.
Welcome in. Sarah, welcome in.
And Sarah, thank you for watching.
Welcome in.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Yeah, just very quickly going to Newcastle because they got beat. Yeah, they got beat 4-0. But again, I've been very critical of them under Steve Bruce. But they actually had greater possession against Leicester today. 53% of the possession. They had 12 shots, of which 3 were on target. And they actually won more corners in the game than Leicester. Now, this is the sign of how Eddie Howe is actually turning that team around. Because I would imagine under Steve Bruce, that would have been probably 35% possession. They might have had a couple of shots, probably none of them on target. And they wouldn't have been sort of on the front foot. Changes are happening at Newcastle. And, okay, maybe the results are not quite there at the minute, but there seems to be a much more positive approach to the style of football that they're playing.
Yeah.
If they keep that up, results will come.
Yeah.
And I was actually getting involved on Twitter with a couple of Newcastle fans and some of the threads going on in there. And I said that one of them actually came around and said, "But look at all this space next to the ground here. We can build on the ground." And I went, what your owners need to concentrate on is improving the quality, because it's the quality, the difference in quality the why Newcastle lost today. It wasn't because of heart. It wasn't because of determination or trying to attempt to win the game. It was purely because Leicester had more quality on the pitch than they did. They got too many Championship or maybe League One level players in their side, and that needs shipping. I think that's the issue with Newcastle at the minute. And to be honest with you, looking at what some of the Newcastle fans were saying on Twitter, it was, we accept, we're going to get relegated, and it's not going to be because of that decision at the penalty that we just spoke about. It's going to be because of the lack of quality on the pitch.
Yeah.
I don't see Newcastle surviving. I really don't.
Well, maybe.
I also see in the longer term, in the future, them going down to the Championship, bouncing straight back up, and spending a lot of money in the summer when they do come up.
Can you guys answer this question for me, right? Because I'm not sure exactly how it works, but with Newcastle, right, they have these new owners with lots and lots of money. Can they just go on a massive spending spree in January, or is there limitations there?
No, it's limited because of the financial fair play. Yeah. So if they went and spent a whole lot of money, first off, they would then be out with the financial fair play boundary, which Everton currently are. Yeah. I hasten to add, they're the only club in the Premier League that are really pushing it, which means that they need to get rid of a player in January in order to fix that. There may be things coming up in January regarding a player who's not played for Everton this season for legal reasons that might help that issue. But for Newcastle, I think, like Stephen said, it needs to be that long-term goal. You can't just go and drop a load of players into that squad, because actually you've seen it happen before at clubs. I've seen it happen at Everton, where you buy 3 or 4 players in a panic buying mode in January, and they're the wrong players for the long-term future of your club. They might see you through a few games, but you're not going to get that long-term view of it. So, and I think Newcastle fans are probably quite prepared to go through that little bit of a rebuild because it's, that they're used to it.
I think you're dead right, John. I think you're dead right. If you actually look how the fans reacted, they got beat 4-0. They travelled down to Leicester, and if you actually watched them and sung and the way they chanted the team through, I think they're over the hurdle of worrying about the direction the club's in. And now they're on the path, they're on the way Newcastle fans are seeing it is they're on the right path, on the right direction. So okay, we can accept relegation because we know what's coming next. And Newcastle fans are not stupid. They know what's happening. They know the team's not good enough. They've had Mike Ashley in charge for far too long. There's Steve Bruce in for way too long. One day was too long for me. So it's one of them. Yeah, it's difficult. It's one of them. But going back to Charlie's question, and what I think I agree inside what you just said there, John. But I'm no FIFA fair play expert by any stretch of the imagination. I don't even know what the general rules are, but I know it's done like a higher level. So they look at the income and the expenditure of the club. It's very much different to the NFL, wage cap. Very different. It all depends on the income and the outgoings of the club, and they've got to stay within their own means. They can go. Correct me if I'm wrong here, John, and I could be very wrong when I say this. Is they can go so much. They can have an over expenditure 1 in 3 years or something like that.
I don't know. I'm with you. It's like a minefield of rules and legislation, and you can push it, but to a certain amount. I think Villa were in a similar boat when they were in the Championship, and if they hadn't been promoted and then promised the money from the Premier League, they would have been struggling a little bit. But since they've become a Premier League club, that becomes less of an issue. So it's all to do with cash flow. It's all to do with how liquid assets within your club are actually managed. And it's also about running your club in a fit and proper way. So, Newcastle got time to do this. I think it is more the marathon rather than the sprint for them. You've got to remember where City started their journey with new owners. Further down the leagues with a thought that they get in, they would build and then rebuild and actually rebuild a club from the bottom up. And I think Newcastle has to be the same because there's been no investment in that team and that stadium and the training facilities under Mike Ashley at all. It's been, it has been just a case of. It has been just a case of just sort of him doing what he did as a chairman. And that wasn't an awful lot, except rile most Newcastle fans.
Yeah. Charlie, you look like you were going to say something then.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, when there is a minefield of rules, as John said, usually the teams with the money find a way through that minefield to do more than what the poorer teams can do. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do find 2 or 3 key players in January to make a difference, but it could be wrong.
That's a good point, Charlie. That is a really good point because I'm going to highlight something here. Now, PSG and Manchester City are the ones who were accused of flouting the FIFA fair play rules the most. And in fact, FIFA, it was a FIFA or UEFA, I think it was FIFA, they went after City, did he not? In the
they did, yeah.
So, and they lost because the team with the money found a way through. Now, I do know there's talks now of getting rid of the ability for a company, a owner of a club, to use some of their subsidiary companies, so you say, sponsoring the said club, right? So this is coming in, and it's probably something that could hinder Newcastle. But at the same time, I'm with you, Charlie. Money talks. Yeah, it's the people with the money. They always find a way through. And they'll always find that loophole. And so, for me, they can make as many rules as they want. The you'll still get round it. They'll find ways to get around.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I don't want the richest clubs to be winning all the time. You know, I want it to be more of a fair field of, you know, for all the teams to be able to compete. You know, or else you're gonna have the teams that are owned by countries, you know, like Qatar or whatever. They're just gonna roll over everyone eventually. You know, it's just, you don't want that, but you also, I just think that, you know, the richer teams do find a way more often, but until they close up all those loopholes that they can get through, then that's going to be, you know, but hopefully they can, hopefully they can get through that, but you know, there's always those palms out there that are getting greased, you know, and for those key decision makers all over the world that stuff ain't gonna happen like you think it's gonna happen. But let's go more positive. Let's not focus on the negative. Yeah, it's a beautiful game, right? It's not a greasy game. It's a beautiful game.
Oh, it's not a good call.
It is a beautiful game, Charlie. You're dead right. It's one of them games that's like free flowing. It's easy to watch. It's easy on the eye. But just because it's easy on the eye and nice to watch, it doesn't mean it doesn't have its ugly side. You know, FIFA have proved that over time and time again, and UEFA to a certain extent as well. And it's all about the money. You know, that's all it's to do. It's about the money. You know, the Premier League, particularly the Premier League, is that big now. You know, I think I said to you guys, I don't know if it was in private or whether it was on one of the shows, that, you know, football, the Premier League, football's the biggest sport in the world. You know, it's got 4 billion followers. You know, the Premier League is the biggest league in the world. And, you know, there's been some dubious decisions done against the grassroots fan, if you like what I call it, you know.
Yeah.
Growing up, I'm old enough to remember, you know, being able to go down to the stadium and pay on the gate and go and stand in the ground. You know,
those were the days.
John, yeah. You know, and for good reason that was took away, you know, and for very good reason. As a Liverpool fan, I'd like to add as well. Mm-hmm. But it's got very commercial, and which is not a bad thing, but it's the money in the game. You know, you look at his salaries. He's looking for this new contract, $500,000 a week. It's like bizarre money. But I always look at the fans, you know, and how is it affecting the fans? So commercially, the people who are broadcasting the game now, particularly over here, I think you see it more. Is, you know, you got the Friday night games, you know, and they don't care who's playing who. I think the first ever Friday night game that we ever played in as Liverpool was a Liverpool v Southampton at home. So from a Liverpool perspective, it wasn't that bad. But I always remember Southampton being the ones who have to travel from the south coast of England. Just to give you perspective, Charlie, it's about an 8 or 9 hour drive from the south coast of England up to Liverpool. We don't have internal flights like you do over in the States. We do, but not as regular and as well organised, because we're only a little island at the end of the day. You know what I mean? You can drive from one end to the other within the day. So it was that sort of thing that started getting me with it. And it's like, yeah, I'm probably going off on tandem here on a little bit of an somewhere else.
No,
it's you know, I think it's worth saying. You know, it's all well and good getting to this size and all this, but we're leaving the real fans behind, I think, sometimes with some of the decisions we make.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you can still find that if you go down to lower league football, non-league especially, where, you know, if you ever have the time, just go and spend 10 quid and just go and watch a game at non-league level, because actually your £10 is actually more valued than your 70 quid ticket to go and see Spurs or whoever. You know, £10 on the gate at non-league is just, it makes such a difference in keeping some of these clubs afloat, and actually the standard of football isn't as bad as you'd imagine.
No, it's not. It's still there. It's still a good game of football. I mean, I used to play Sunday League, John. You know, and I remember we played the team, and they were actually rejects from Accrington Stanley. You know, and this is genuine. This is. I know Charlie won't know the advert, but you know, genuinely, these are rejects from Accrington Stanley, and they absolutely polarised us. I think we did like 15-16-0 he battered us. You
Yeah.
know, so you're at a level where it's non-league. You got players who aren't good enough to get into that non-league team coming to a Sunday league. What we're at.
to give you a footballing lesson in it, like, you know.
Yeah, so to play football at any level, amateur, really low league, professionally, like league, was it League 2 now? You know, there's still a good standard of football. It's still a lot better than what you do on the pitch, and it certainly goes. I mean, yeah, you go on about that, John, and I think I'll go into this because coming to me now. You know, you got big clubs like Man United, and Liverpool, right? Now, Man United, and Liverpool done this for two very different reasons. They formed another club associated with the main club solely for affordable football watching, local, so you can get down there and watch it. And Liverpool's one, I don't know whether they moved or whether they're still going, but they used to play in Prescott, John, your hometown, you know. You know, and Man United, you know, they done it, and they done it in protest of the Glazers. You know, but still, I think it just brought a good reason to go down and watch a good game of football, because that's what it's about. It's because another reason why you can't get down there and why it's a good idea is because the affordability of going to watch football now. You know, for me, I've got two lads. So for me to go and watch Liverpool with two lads, I'm looking at close on 200 quid for the tickets alone. Yeah. Right? So there's half my week's wage or a week's wage for most people gone.
Yeah.
Right? You've then got the programme, which is extortionate, the cost. You've then got the cheap, nasty pies that they sell, you know, at an extortionate price. You know, it's like you think Gordon Ramsay had baked the things, you know, the prices they pay, and then you know the cost of your Bovril as well has gone over.
Yeah,
you know, so it's just expensive, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm totally with you on that, Stephen. You know, I think that's another reason why, in some respects, the money men, going back to that point, is the teams with money, they actually don't particularly care that much about the fan, because if you don't go, you're replaceable, and that's kind of that goes against where you'd really sort of like to think that you were an integral part of your football club and an integral part of your weekend and giving up your time and making the effort to go and see them either home or away. There would be that acknowledgement that you were needed, and actually. So it's putting bums on seats, and as long as somebody buys the ticket, then they're all right. So
kind of like Disney nowadays, you know, your replacement. They'll keep jacking the prices up, and
let's charge you.
Keep paying these prices, they'll keep putting them up. Yeah. I think John's hit the nail on the head there. You know, it's like when you go to like big clubs. You know, particularly the Premier League clubs, you know, top half anyway. You know, you got that many fans of them. You not going is only going to get filled by someone else.
Yeah.
And that's probably, and so, you know, some Liverpool fans, and myself included, I get a bit proud about how big our club is, how big our fan base is around the world, and it's a great achievement. But that's also a detriment. It's a detriment because you have less power on your say to that club. And that's probably why things like the Spirit of Shankly was formed. So they had the voice for the fans, you know. And by the way, it worked because you talk about 70 quid tickets. FSG tried to introduce £70 tickets in the main stand. And the Spirit of Shankly went, no, not having none of that. Big voice, big rise, and they quelled it straight away. So we do have a voice. And we've got a collective voice rather than, like you say, John, at the lower leagues, you've got like, well, I'm not going to come and give you your 10 quid. Well, that 10 quid's going to hurt that club more than it would do, say, like a Liverpool, Man United, Man City, Chelsea, or something like that, Everton. You know, it is, you know, but if you've got like a big fan base, it's about finding a way to get the big fan base to come together and have that one voice and that one's focal point. So that's why you're seeing things like, you know, fan unions, that they call them. Like the Spirit of Shankly. Do Everton have something like that, John? I'm not sure.
No, we just got a load of people who love whinging. Basically, it's just.
That's Evertonians, isn't it? That's just Evertonians.
It's so telling. It really is. It's just like, you go through Monday night and everything was fine, and then you get to tonight, and then it's suddenly everyone's on the manager's back again. You haven't beaten a really good Palace. Were really good today. I'm going to put that out there. Palace, for all I had them down as certainly one of my bottom 5 teams in the whole of the league for the whole season. Palace under Vieira look a completely different team. They look really good. Conor Gallagher, who's in my fantasy football team. So look for little silver linings from an Everton defeat today, since he scored twice. So he's earned me a bucket load of points. It's an away defeat. We've got Chelsea next. But everyone's just lumping in the fact that Rafa out. It's just like, come on, get a grip. I said it last week. Get a grip of yourself. It's changing the manager's not going to do any good at all. We're just, you've got to look at the bigger picture. And I think fans are just far too quick to do that, irrespective of whether or not you're collectively doing it. And unlike the Spirit of Shankly, I don't think, apart from Toffee TV, which are a really great watch on YouTube, there's not that collective voice from the fans, and that's possibly a negative thing for Everton, but it's probably a positive thing for the board at the minute.
Yeah, and you had a good rant about that last week, Joe.
Yeah, totally. And you've put that on YouTube, which I was really impressed by, Stephen. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was great because I thought it was one of them rants that the little snippet out and just shared. But to be fair, you made some really, really good points in that. That discussion. It was. We call it a rant. It wasn't a rant. It was a very reasoned.
Yeah, it's got to be reasoned. Got to be reasoned. And you know something? I'll stick by everything I said, because it's not. You're not going to fix everything at Everton in a couple of weeks. It's years worth of neglect. And years worth of wasted money from the owner. So, fair play to Steve Parish at Palace today. As a chairman, he's picked his manager carefully, got rid of Hodgson over the summer. I didn't think Vieira would do as good a job as he's done. He's settled in really nicely there, and what he's creating is a team that want to play football. And you can't complain when a team wants to play football, because it's actually more pleasing. It's pleasing on the eye. And it's also pleasing to see that they're not frightened of having a go.
That's it. It's like this thing about the manager out. I watched the game on Monday, and Everton were immense. They were really good. The crowd was behind them, everything like that. There was no Rafa out at that point. Why is the Rafa out now? Come on, get a realization, right? You had it. You got the realization, John. You know where Everton's at. You had a good review of it last week, and I don't think there's anything I disagree with on there. It was great, and you'd understand what needs to be happening. And how I ended the clip was you saying we need to get behind Rafa and get on with it, because you need a long-term goal now. You need to get on with it. So you're going to have a lack of consistency. So you need that's natural. It's natural. You can't judge Rafa's consistency on players he hasn't bought. He hasn't done. Once it's Rafa's team and he hasn't got the consistency.
Totally. And really ordinary players at that.
Yeah.
And I think what he did today took Richarlison off, which didn't go down well with the fans. Nor with Richarlison. He wasn't happy at coming off. But actually, we're playing on Thursday again. So what do you do? Do you keep flogging these players who, Richarlison's not long back after, being unfit, having been through playing for Brazil in the summer. You've got to take care of these players. You can't just keep letting them play 90 minutes, and then suddenly realise why they then pick up an injury that's going to put them out for 2 or 3 months. Have a bit of rationale about sort of what has to happen to your team. And put trust. Everton have really got to put trust in some of the youngsters. I said that last week, and I think, I would really highlight the lad Gallagher, he's on loan to Palace, and he just looks a very, very good football player. He's another Chelsea loanee as well, I hasten to add, which is even more scary because you think about Billy Gilmore is at Norwich, is a Chelsea player, Conor Gallagher, a Chelsea player. You know, they've got now 2 players that are getting Premier League experience, not at Chelsea. So when they come back into the Chelsea team, where did he fit in? And if I was somebody like Ross Barkley, I'd be packing my bags already because you're not going to be playing much next season. So
who's that guy you guys Everton has down the right hand side? Is it Gordon, young kid?
Anthony Gordon, yeah.
He had some impressive crosses into the box when I was watching today, at least in the second half. I was like, wow, that guy's like Alexander Arnold a little bit. He had some really good crosses. They should be
the young lad. He needs to learn his trade, and the only way he can do it is by playing as many games in the Premier League as possible.
Yeah,
and I think Rafa was a bit reluctant to play him, but the fans actually have basically insisted that Anthony Gordon is the one that's come through the ranks.
He's a scrapper.
Yeah, he is.
Richarlison, I think, is a major baby. Huge baby. I just don't like watching him. Every time I see him on the field, if he doesn't get the ball, he's going like this and he's doing all this little baby stuff. It's like he needs to grow up. I was happy when Rafa yanked him. I was like, hey, good. Sit down. Shut up.
Yeah. It was strange, Charlie, because my brother actually went to the game. And so his last text to me this afternoon, it's incredible to watch the body language of the players towards each other. And there's a lot of pointing at each other. There's a lot of shouting at each other. There's a lot of negativity amongst the group. And there's obviously a frustration there. But you've got to have the likes of Anthony Gordon. And if Richarlison's having a strop and stuff like that, and you just have to deal with him as well. So, it'll come.
He needs time. He needs time to. You start blaming him when it's his team that he's picked. If his team that he picked is failing, then you sack the manager. But you can't bring in a guy and then expect him to do miracles with some other person's team.
Exactly.
It's not just a team, Charlie. Like we highlighted last week, it's a mixture of about 5 or 6 managers' teams, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. That's the annoying bit. It really is frustrating because it's dribs and drabs. But hey, we had enough about Everton last week. I want to talk about some of the other games this weekend because Friday night football was back, and we had Brentford Watford, and I've got to tell you, I loved watching that game of football. It had absolutely everything in it, including a dodgy penalty and things. But again, Brentford, Thomas Franks he gets them playing to a system, but they're playing attractive, easy on the eye football, and it's such a joy to watch. It really is. I love it. There we go. Yeah.
Currently in 10th.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that. Can we have a look at the top 4 with the Tottenham winning
Yeah, the one I'm way
so much to be said for it. That to me was a really outstanding result for them at home. And Watford again, another team that proven difficult to beat since Ranieri's gone there. A little bit naive at times, but I tell you what, as they shown against Everton when they scored a bucket load at Goodison, they're not frightened. They're not frightened of getting beat because they'll just keep going on the front foot time and time again. And I love watching that. You can't criticise it, and which is probably a good time to talk about the Liverpool game, because I actually feel, and you've alluded to it slightly as well, Stephen. Steven Gerrard turned up with probably 3 buses to try to avoid getting a defeat at Liverpool, and it actually, for all people to say, Villa are doing really well under Gerrard, he turned up with quite a negative sort of game set, and I just think, well, help yourself. I know you're playing Liverpool, but try and play. Don't try and just feed off the scraps. Don't know what you guys think. Well, you've obviously watched more of it than I have. I just got frustrated by it.
Charlie, you start. I'll come in.
I didn't see Aston Villa as parking the bus, or I
Yeah.
thought they actually came with the intention to play. At times, I think we were the better team. I think we were all over them at times, but they did have in the second half a good 15-minute area time period where they were. You could tell I was worried a little bit. It's like, okay, let's get the. I wanted the cushion goal. I wanted the insurance goal, but and then some people might say that Salah penalty was a little soft, but I still think it was a penalty.
I thought it was a penalty as well.
Yeah, but it wasn't a harsh penalty, but I could have seen them saying no, it's not a penalty, but I'm glad they did give it, and he took a really, really great penalty. That was a bullet. I mean, within inches of perfection in the corner where it needed to be, because the keeper picked the right side, and he still blasted it by him.
Thankfully, unlike Steven, I left him as my captain this week as well.
I know.
Yeah, me too.
That's why you've beat me, because I made the silliest. I thought, James, come on. They got. I know Leeds are they're a tough team. I thought, no, Chelsea are walking away with this. I thought James having a great season, put him as captain, but no.
Yeah.
Go on. Oh well, you live and you learn, don't you? You live and you learn.
But speaking of Salah, though, someone's got. I hope he has some good people in his ear saying that, this isn't all about money. Okay, you go and move to another team, you have to find that that team that works with you, that you work really, really well with, and they've been building that at Liverpool for the last 6 years. And this is like a team that knows each other, and he's not going to have this type of these goals and assists. He's not going to have that going into a new team. I don't care if it's Barcelona or wherever. You're not going to get those numbers that he's getting at Liverpool. And what does he want? Does he want trophies, or does he want more money? That's what it comes down to. If it comes down to money, he's going to leave. If he wants trophies and he wants to achieve something special in soccer, in the world of soccer, and finally maybe get that Ballon d'Or maybe next year or the year after or whatever, then he stays at Liverpool. It's simple as that. You can't be chasing the money all the time, because it's not going to. It comes down to the relationships that you have in the team, and them knowing you, and that increases your numbers, not just getting to a new team, not getting that big contract. Watch some people go get that big money and they're instant failures, because the pressure, because they don't have the support of the team, they don't have that that linking up with the team players.
I think it also upsets the desire of the player. Once they've got that big money contract, it suddenly seems as if, well, I've got it now. I've got 5-year contract. I don't have to go and try that extra 20% that have been busting a gut to prove that I'm worth so many millions of pounds in transfer fee, and that's sad, because you generally see it in a lot of young lads who get to a certain level, think they've made it, they get the big money move, and then suddenly the career kind of peters out a little bit.
I'm talking about Grealish, or
no? Well, Grealish is a good example, but I think it's a bit early. Yeah,
a little early.
There's a lot of them over time. There's a lot of them that are, they get to 24, 25. Was it Jermaine Pennant? Even going back a few years, there's players that when they reach a level where they should be kicking on, they should be becoming international regulars, and then suddenly the career path just takes a massive dive, because they're then probably seen more on the front pages of the newspapers rather than the back pages, and again it comes back, the money spoils them, and I'd like to think that Salah's a bit beyond that, considering how badly he was treated at Chelsea. He was more or less cast aside by Chelsea. I'd never given that opportunity to really get the chance there. So
yeah, sorry, that's Martin. That's me, Addison's mate. He's also a son of my friend as well.
Yeah,
he's a big Evertonian. His dad's a Red, So
Yeah, it goes out to you, Matt, I tell you.
So Rafa needs to go. John,
Yeah.
Everton should have beat Palace, but it was a complete bottle job. What do you reckon, lads? Come on. Put him to rights.
I don't agree with you, Matt, but actually you're entitled to your opinion. You know, and I think, you know, have a look at how well Palace played today. And I'd be much happier tonight as a Palace fan than I am as an Evertonian.
Should I be asking what a bottle job is, or?
Oh, hey man, that's a good question, Charlie. I like that. So, what's the best way to describe bottle? It's when you hold your nerve. When you hold your nerve, and you basically, if you lose your bottle, you've lost your nerve and you've lost your way.
Okay.
So
sorry, Charlie. It's a Scouse term, right?
Yeah.
You be able to talk to your Scouse family as well. They'll all say, you know, when you're going to go for a bet and you lose your bottle and you get it. Oh, you've lost your bottle, mate. You've done a bottle job. That's what
I try to talk to them as much as possible. It's understanding them. That's the tricky part.
Yeah.
I'm not going to react to that, Charlie.
Well, I can understand you, but I don't know if they come from a different part of town. But they're like, I'm like, repeat that a little slower. Okay, yeah.
Brilliant. Love it. Oh, fabulous.
Well, the further north you get, the stronger the accent gets, Charlie. So maybe in the north end of Liverpool, maybe. I mean, if you listen to Jamie Carragher, he's like Poole, so he's like really north.
Yeah, they're more like Jamie. Yeah, I think like whatever were they? Liverpool 14, whatever that is.
Well, I was Liverpool 14.
Really?
Liverpool 14, yeah.
Wow, yeah. A lot of my family came from like Grover Stav and that area.
Right. There you go.
Right behind our long row of shops, but I imagine there's shops everywhere.
I remember where your family's from now, Charlie, because I remember coming on with my wife to your other show on your other channel. And it was Dovecot.
Dovecot, yeah.
And you're at the back of the Dovecot shops, and I was just down the road. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. That's awesome.
Good memory there, Stephen. I like that.
To be honest with you, I found an old A to Z. I'm going away from the footy here, so anyone's watching the footy, I apologise a minute. You know what, Charlie? We'll talk about it after the show. We'll move on. We'll start seeing this from a football chat to like the streets of Liverpool or something.
Streets of Liverpool, yeah. Liverpool by postcode. Oh dear.
I never forgot where we're at, so maybe.
Did anyone watch the Man United game at all?
No. I'll tell you what a farce of a penalty again.
What it just. Yeah, that's it.
He's got hold of me collar.
Yeah. And I've got to admit, I was we sat having a healthy discussion at home last night about it because my son was insisting it was a penalty, but actually.
We'll come to that in a minute. Sorry, John. We'll come to that in a minute, Matt. Yeah. John, talk about what you're going to talk about now. We'll come to that.
Yeah, I just felt for someone the quality of Ronaldo to react the way that he did in order to buy the penalty, because that's what he did. He basically bought himself a penalty. There was no doubt. Yeah, somebody it wasn't a pull. It was somebody had touched his collar, and I just felt that it's that sort of using the situation to actually. To manipulate the scoreline, and I just felt Norwich were a little bit badly done to, and I'd expect more Ronaldo if that was, but that's just me.
I just want to put a stat out there, okay? The man of the match was De Gea. That's for me.
Yeah.
I didn't see the game. I watched the extended highlights, 15 minutes of, so I've only seen 15 minutes of the game, so I can't really comment too much, but the 15 minutes I watched that was on the extended highlights, Norwich were the better team.
Norwich played well. Norwich were great. And Dean Smith, again, just sort of going back to, I think it was a stat yesterday that if it had beaten United, because with Villa, they'd beaten them earlier in the season. They'd been the first manager in the same season to have beaten United twice or something for two different clubs or something bizarre like that. But I just felt they deserved a little bit more out of it. United did well to get the penalty.
I'm chuckling on the inside, hearing that United couldn't beat Norwich except for a penalty. That's
exactly it.
That makes my insides happy. Being a Liverpool fan. It's the little things. It's the little things, right?
It is. And going back to what Matt just said there.
That's a good call.
So what's our thoughts, right? Charlie, I'm going to let you answer this before I do, and then John.
My thought is Jota is the right guy for the moment. Firmino 5 years ago, absolutely, I would have went with Firmino. He was the essential playmaker for the top three. He's depleted a little bit. He's gone down a little bit since then. He's definitely a strong bench guy. I wouldn't mind seeing a rotation of those four, even if you put in, Firmino, Jota, and Salah once in a while, or I wouldn't give Salah a rest, but I would rotate those other three, Firmino, Jota, and Mane, because sometimes Mane's just he can't hit the net for 100 mil. He just can't hit the net sometimes, and sometimes he needs a little shock. Put him on the bench for 20 minutes, but I still have faith in Firmino. But right now, Jota is the guy who's hungry, who seems like he is running himself ragged. He's putting everything on the field, leaving it all. So I think he deserves the top spot.
Yeah,
Firmino, yeah.
Right.
That's good. Good question. Thanks, Matt.
Off to you. Because I'm going to throw something in the mix there. I don't think Mane is a guaranteed start at the minute. I think Mane is not. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. He does great things on the pitch. Yeah. But they said Charlie can't find the back of the net half the time, most of the time.
I've got the answer to that.
For me, he's also a bit of a. We were talking about Richarlison being a stroppy player. Mane can throw a little tantrum as well. And I've noticed that creeping into his game a lot lately. So for me, to compare Jota with Firmino is a bit unfair because Jota for me, he's more of a poacher. He's more someone who's going to find them gaps where Firmino likes to drop. He's more like someone who holds the key, unlock the defence in that kind of role. I think Firmino's more suited to a number 10 than a false number 9, where Jota's more suited to a false number 9 than a number 10. So I think there's space for the two of them to play in the team. And I'd probably say, do you know what? I'd probably go, well, neither of them can go out to the left. So you're sort of stuck then, aren't you? Well, if Mane goes, you can't have the two of them on that. So you'd have to drop one of them into midfield, either Firmino or Jota. And when he does that, he tends to put Jota in midfield and Firmino up the top. So I don't know. It's a conundrum, really, of what goes on with that. Can the two of them play together in the same team? If they can, what's the formation? What's the tactics?
It's a good one for Sarah.
Yeah, send them to Everton. Yeah. No, I know the answer. Do you know what the answer? The problem with Mane is, right? I bought him for my fantasy football team about 4 weeks ago. Since he's been in that team, he's done absolutely nothing.
John, it's your fault.
It is my fault, and I actually know that the minute an hour I get rid, he'll go into this. He'll score a hat trick or something like that. So I'll hold my hand up, and I'll sort of gladly accept that I am solely to blame for Sadio Mane's drop in form.
So it's because of you bitter blues. Why Mane's not playing well. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I've got a bit of talk about the fantasy Premier League and dilemmas. I've got a bit of a dilemma because I'm thinking I need to drop Mane because he's not scoring as much points as I thought. Yeah. But I also have 2 injuries or 2 blockouts on my defence. So I've got Cancelo, he's gone. He's suspended. And I have Chalobah, he's injured. Alonso, they're all out.
Yeah.
So I have that pain with you, John. But
yeah.
I just to stick with Matt's question here, I know he's asked another one there, and it's like I don't know. what you do there. Jota, for me, he's more of a. He's going to find the holes. He's scoring the goals. Firmino's the one who unlocks. I think Firmino is probably one of the most underappreciated players in the Premier League for me.
Yeah.
I don't think people appreciate what he does. They see him as a front man. He doesn't score many goals. No, he's not a front man. He never has been. He's never been a striker. He's not that type of player. He's a creative player, and he's the type of person who can be crowded by 3 or 4 people and then create a
because a long time ago he was an attacking midfielder, right? And and under like Klopp had a serious need for a forward, so he kind of like bled Firmino forward. You know, it's kind of like did this makeshift thing with Firmino forward.
Yeah.
Why can't he just bring Firmino back as an attacking, playmaking midfielder now? Because he definitely runs, and he definitely does. He runs the whole field. He goes back for the ball. He helps with defense. Firmino's a really good guy. I'd say he'd probably be like a replacement for Hendo, even sometimes. You know, he's like he's not a lazy kid. He's not a lazy player at all, and he's a good playmaker. So
I find our pressing is much better up the top with Firmino in the team as well. He's the one who drives the press. When we haven't got the ball, he's the one who gets there on top of the opposition's defence as well. And I think you hit the nail on the head. That's how they play, Charlie. I think you just solved the conundrum. Jota goes in the middle. Firmino drops into the attacking midfielder. No, and that's how they play. So you have Mane on the left, Jota in the middle, Salah on the right. Firmino in like that support and attacking role that links midfield with attack. I think he's perfect for that.
Yeah.
I do. He is. Or even play a 4-4-2 sort of formation with Jota and Firmino as strikers, and have Mane on the left with Salah on the right. Have Jota drop as a false 9. I don't know, Matt, because to be honest with you, you look at the way Liverpool play. We're not a 4-4-2 team. We're definitely suited to the 4-3-3 type, with the wing backs driving forward. At the 2 up the top, that's something that's drifted out of the game, hasn't it, lately, lads? That 2 up the top. I know Everton played 2 up the top in the derby.
Yeah,
but you don't see it a lot now, do you? 2 at the top.
No, and it's all that false 9 and that rotation of the team, and
I want to tell you just to throw this out there, because with these 4-4-2s, 4-3-3s. I see Liverpool as such a fluent team that those numbers don't mean jack squat to me anymore.
Yeah,
they're all he has a team of intellectually very intelligent players that can play many different positions on the team. So that's why they're so successful as a fluent team. They can be all over. Sometimes you can have Robertson and Alexander-Arnold on totally different sides, and they're comfortable there. You know, they're very intersectional team, you know, whatever I'm trying to say. They know each other's positions, and they know how to play multiple positions, and they're very fluent. So these numbers, they don't really mean a lot.
But just to throw it out there as well, because actually I think it's a fantastic point, and I think City do something very, very similar, totally interchangeable. Is this possibly where Chelsea, in being less capable of rotating the team and the positioning of the individuals in the team on the pitch during a match day, is this possibly where teams are beginning to find Chelsea out a little bit more as the longer this season's gone on? You know, because they don't look anywhere near the quality that they were 3 or 4 weeks ago to Chelsea. They seem to have lost the way. But is that because teams are actually finding a way to stifle their attacking force? You know, whereas with City seem to grind out a result even when they're not playing well. Liverpool have now, for the past two weekends, have got a result when it was proven a sort of the other team were being quite obstinate and it actually just sort of defending really deeply. But Chelsea seem to be the ones that don't seem to be able to break people down when they come part of the bus.
And I've got a theory on that as well, John. Is because a few weeks ago I made the transfer myself in the Fantasy Premier League. I put Mendy in goal. There you go. Goals. I mean, what's going on here?
It's your fault. It's your fault.
My fault. No, it's my fault. But no, I'm gonna say I watched with the 3 playing yesterday. I watched the highlights again today of all 3 games, and I just wanted to watch something because all three of them won by a penalty. So Liverpool won by a penalty, City won by a penalty, and Chelsea won by a penalty. Liverpool and City won 1-0, Chelsea won 3-2. So I wanted to see, right, look at comparisons to the games. Was City all over what was it playing? Wolves was, and I know Liverpool were all over Aston Villa because I watched the whole game. And was Chelsea all over Leeds? Now I watched the highlights, and what I seen was, yes, Liverpool was all over. I mean, memory's gone. It was all over
Wolves.
No,
Villa.
Aston Villa, right? You've got, and then you had City all over Wolves, right? Yeah. But in the Leeds game with Chelsea, Leeds give Chelsea some scares, and the shipping goals. So here's where I'm going to come as well, Charlie. As a Liverpool fan, I'm kind of hopeful now because if you cast your mind back to the Anfield game when Chelsea came to Anfield. And we were all over them. We were pinning them back, but they wouldn't concede a goal because I didn't have Mendy in my fantasy team at the time. So they didn't concede goals. So I'm like, I want to keep Mendy in my fantasy team all the way up to the 3rd of January.
Klopp's told you to. That's
Maybe we got to go start drafting some City players too, huh?
But I'm with you, John. I think they're showing some cracks in the team, and they're showing some. So I think I said this in last week's show or the week before. Is Chelsea, for me, are a good side. They're really, really top side, and they deserve to be where they're at, challenging Liverpool and City for the title. However, where they're going to fall short on is that then trying to break teams down, trying to get the goals. I mean, they relied not on just a 1 penalty yesterday, but 2. They got 2 penalties to get that 3-2.
It's an interest. It's going to be an interesting few weeks, guys, because I think the fixtures come thick and fast. We've got midweek fixtures this midweek. We've got games next, and then we're then into that Christmas bit where everyone seems to play every other day. So it could just end up being sort of just a really sort of important part before we get to the new year.
Yeah, and the games are going to come thick and fast. So we're going to have a chat after this about what we're going to be doing over Christmas. So we'll let you know what we're doing in terms of shows and when they're coming on, when we're talking about it and stuff like that. But yeah, the games are coming thick and fast. We're over the hour now, lads, and we haven't even touched what do we think the top 4 is going to look like. You know, the relegation battle. We touched on it a little bit, but not too much. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They all need to be discussed. And halfway through, what I think we should do, lads, as well, is at the halfway point when we've all played like 19 games, we'll get the table, and we'll get the table on the table as well, and we'll see what we're looking like. Hopefully, Spurs have played their 2 games in, and by then, and I'll look pretty sweet for the top 4. But anyway, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone got in chat. Matt, thanks for us, mate. Thank you very much.
That was good.
And Harrison as well, getting involved as well with Matt in the chat as well there. Until next week, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
I've lost my mouse. Yeah.